Okay, hello and welcome to another ComfyUI tutorial. Today we're going to be covering the creation of a live painting module. I'm going to cover how you can more easily use that and show you kind of the process of using that to basically draw directly into a program and then bring that into ComfyUI and have it just generate stuff as you're working. So basically live painting while you work. And I'm going to show you how to do that. In the process of that, I'm going to show you how to use LCM. If you haven't used LCM before, this will be how you set up LCM. And there's a couple of little bits and pieces of this, but mainly it's a very simple setup. You can use this module in any workflow that you have. Just make sure that if you're doing it, you probably want to set up LCM with this module, because then it'll generate a lot quicker. So let's get started, and I'm just going to start and we'll do the whole workflow and then we'll build the module. So the loader component is by far the biggest and most complicated part of the entire process. It has a load checkpoint obviously over here. It has a clip set last layer, which is the same as clip skip for A1. I'd set it -2 at the moment. I vary it quite a bit. It just depends what model you're using as to what you want to set this to. The model doesn't really matter. I'm using an SDXL model, a kind of semi-photoreal one, which actually does really good oil painting for some reason from Triple-Headed Monkey. And I'm using a LoRa, the LCM LoRa over here. And this is kind of kludged onto the top, as you can see. And that's because I just attached this to an existing workflow that I had. And it's really easy to set up and run. So now over here we have our prompts. We have positive, equality one is the blue one, the green one is the positive, and the red one is our negative. So we'll just cover the prompt while we're here. Now the prompt itself is going to be an impasto oil painting. Now an impasto oil painting is a kind of 3D textured kind of oil painting. It's typically done with very thick paint. They're more three-dimensional paintings. They're a little bit like a sculpture. So they often have things like shadows and stuff like that applied to them, which makes them a very a really interesting way of drawing or doing art. And it won't work with all models. Really, this is just something I've been messing around with a bunch lately. So you can use it or not use it. It's up to you. But that's the idea, is to make this kind of like an oil painting. Now I'm using a vicious biomechanical monster as my main subject. Now the reason I'm using biomechanical is if I have any hard-edged lines in this, it's going to try to make them kind of semi-mechanical. If I have curved lines, it's going to try and make them biological, which essentially means that by controlling the way that the texture of the images that I create, I can essentially kind of control which bits are hard and which bits are soft and which bits become metal and which bits become kind of flesh. Monster, typically it loves to make horns on things, depends on the model, loves to make horns, and it also is really good at making pointy teeth. Now if we go and have a look, we have horror is following that, and for horror it tends to it's more of an atmospheric kind of word. It tends to dip stuff towards a more horrifying kind of appearance. I've got teeth because I really want teeth in this, which means it's going to put teeth on things that it probably shouldn't if I'm not careful. So just be aware that means I really, really, really want teeth. If I put teeth in, you will have teeth all over the place. If you don't have like actual mouth that you've drawn, it will put mouths in places. So be aware of that. I'm setting it in a post-apocalyptic wasteland because I want to have some kind of background, giving it an idea of what I want for a background. And by doing that, I'm stopping it from trying to render the background full of the same thing as my subject. If you don't have a background, there's a chance it'll make twins, it'll make more monsters, it'll change your landscape or whatever is in your background into monsters. So giving the background gives it a component to work with as a background. And if you really wanted to push that, make sure that it does use a in the background a post-apocalyptic wasteland or something like that, which will boost it and make it even more want to be the background instead of the foreground. And I won't really describe the quality stuff. Everyone's messed with these things and everyone has their own little kind of their magical version which works really well with this. Really up to you, quality stuff. I have them in 2 separate boxes. I like to delete and work with the green one and leave the blue one as it is. That's why it's in 2 boxes. And I'm sticking them together with a concatenate text node, which I've shown before. Basically sticks one text onto another text end to end. And we basically can build prompts with this in multiple kind of sources that way. And this is plugged into our clip text encodes up the top here. And the majority of the output is going out this bus over here. And this is the LCM component of the workflow up here. Now down here, down the bottom, is another component. And this conditioning and this setup over here is actually for the second half of this workflow, which is a refining step. And because we are refining the image and we're working on it using higher steps count, we want more definition, we want sharper images, we're not using LCM for that. So if you look up here, you'll see that all the LCM stuff goes through this LoRa and then connects to these, but down here it's not going into these. These are going in a different path and bypassing this, which leaves them as the original kind of model settings. All right, let's talk about the LoRa. So LCM requires the use of a LoRa. And in order to get the LCM LoRa, you're going to have to go to either Hugging Face or one of the other, there's probably other sources for LCM LoRas. You need to make sure that you use the correct LCM for your model. If you're using an SDXL base model, you need to make sure it's an SDXL LCM and vice versa for 1.5 and so on. And I think there may be some custom LCM variants out in the wild at this point as well. Now over here we have the CR aspect ratio, and the reason we use this is it gives us the ability to output an empty latent. It gives us the ability to output the size of that empty latent without doing a whole bunch of messing around. It has the SDXL and 1.5 compliant resolutions built in, and if you set it to custom, you can even use custom resolution settings over here. It has some upscale settings as well, which let you just straight up upscale it right at the very beginning. If you have a really good graphics card, maybe you want to do that, which allows you to run at much higher resolutions when you're running through these things. And of course has batch sizes built in as well. Now the Comfy Roll nodes are really interesting. They're really good. There's some amazing nodes in that pack and you should check it out if you haven't already. But one of the cool things about the Comfy Roll nodes is they often have this show help line here. And if you drag this out and use a show text, something similar, what it's going to do is when you run the workflow, it'll give you a link to the actual page where you can find help about the particular node that you're getting help for, which is really useful if you want to know what a node is doing and see some of the information about it. So that's a pretty cool feature that Comfy Roll has for a lot of its custom nodes. All right, so at the bottom comes the standard model setup and all of the stuff for the standard thing, and LCM is coming up at the top. If we follow the LCM line along this bus node here, we're not using a rainbow of kind of reroutes like we have been previously, because I've shifted over to using suit for this process. And we go into the sampler, which is all about the end here. And the sampler starts with another bus node to bring everything in and send everything through the sampler kind of module over here. And we simply have a case sampler set up for LCM, so it's using a low CFG count. Usually you want to go under 3 with LCM, and your steps need to be usually under 15, and the lower you go, the quicker it's going to be. But kind of there's some, it's kind of fiddly. You can raise the step count pretty high on these, and it will keep going, but it just tends to make more and more variations of the same thing the longer it goes. So the lower the step count for this is probably better for that. And we're using a very low denoise of 0.15, and that's because we don't want it to change what we're doing a huge amount. with the live painting process. We just want it to tweak what we're doing and make it a little bit better. Now, it also has a preview image, so I'm outputting a preview. I'm not actually saving with this. If you want to save images, you have to save nodes in these. I don't have the hard drive space to just save out thousands of files. I would advise not saving out every file if you're using an LCM/live painting thing. Now the second part of this module is a refiner step. Basically, I'm upscaling it and outputting it through a case sampler which runs on the original setup, and it's going to take 4 times longer than LCM, so I don't really enable this until I've got an image that I really like. And but I will be providing the workflow, so if you want to turn this on, it's up to you. But I'm going to turn it off while I do this tutorial because otherwise it'll take forever. Okay, let's get back to the heart of it. What we're actually going to build for this. Now that I'm a good 10 minutes in, let's actually get to building the node, the module. So live painting module, basically we are bringing in a capture screen using this share screen node here from Zfkun, so Zfkun, and the share screen node that they have is really cool. The node pack itself is a little bit random. It seems to be specific to the user themselves. It's just put their own kind of custom nodes in it, and they don't seem hugely related to each other. But this one is amazing. All right, so let's have a look at the share screen node while we're here. The share screen node has an image output, has an image input, and the image input, I'm not exactly sure why you need image input or why it has weight. I think this is just some weird kind of very specific use case that the creator had for this kind of node. It outputs seeds, weights, prompt, and so on, and for whatever reason it decided that they needed these. But the useful part of this is the share screen component down here. Now I'm going to stop it so that it's not sharing what I currently have. And this is what it'll look like when you first bring it in. It'll be kind of grey and it'll have stuff in here. And you'll see that it actually has little settings on it. And that's because it is actually a live video feed in this window. And if we click Start Share Screen, it'll open up a second little window up here, which will have stuff like your browser tabs. If you have application, it'll have all your the various windows that you have open and that kind of stuff. And if you have entire screens, you can pick the monitors that you have plugged into your computer as well. And for this process, I'm going to suggest that you use a monitor for this, because application windows can change sizes, which will possibly mess up the whole process with the module. So it's a good idea to use something which is going to be a fixed size you're aware of, rather than something that could be changed by you moving the window or whatever. Right, so I'm going to select the one which is the digital tablet in front of me right now and click share. Now the first time you do this, it may throw some kind of a warning and ask if you have permissions, and you just have to say yes. And as you can see, it has placed this little window in here with some of that stuff. Now you'll see that it's got the entire window, it's got the menus and everything, and we don't want the menus. The menus are not what we want to be telling Stable Diffusion to change. We have this node next to it, the image crop. Now image crop is a standard node which comes with ComfyUI, and we're going to be setting the width and the height to be the same as what we are using for the workflow for the main kind of input for this. However, while I'm doing this in this kind of way, because I have room for that, I have room for this resolution on this monitor. If you have a setup where your monitor doesn't have the right resolution to run the same as the workflow, or there's some kind of user interface reason why the program you're doing this with needs a specific resolution, because this will work with, this isn't just going to work with Photoshop, this will work with anything. You could use this on videos, you can use it on 3D programs. I'm showing you on Photoshop, you could use it on GIMP, you could use this on Flash, use this on Illustrator, Corel Draw is probably not a thing anymore, but you could use it on that. You you could use it on Paint, right? This will work on anything because it's just recording your screen. Anyway, so depending on what user interface you're using, you need to make sure that you have something that fits within the work area. That's the kind of cream colored area here. And I'm using one which is compliant with SD, so it's fine. But because it could possibly, you might have to have a different one, I have this node over here, which is like, I'm doubling it up here because it works for me, but this upscale image here is like your security blanket. Make sure that your settings here remain the same over here. So if you have a much more complicated workflow with resolutions and stuff, you can just plug the width and height into the module, send it to the upscale image, and it should resize everything properly when you output. So back to the image crop now that I've explained that. The X and Y value is the X and Y value location of the top left-hand corner of your selection area. So if I will switch over to this, hang on, and let's have a raw. So if you are using this crop thing, this top corner here is where you are locating your cropped area. So this particular point, and you need to count in from the top and the side and go, okay, this is the location on my monitor where this kind of corner of this is located. And it will count outwards those pixels, so it'll count the top two, the width and the height from this. So all the way along here, it'll be 1, 3, 4, 4, and then 7, 6, 8 down, for example, depending on what your settings are for your monitor or whatever. And basically, yeah, so top left-hand corner is what you're locating with this, and this is going in 100 from the side and 200 from above. And if we look over here, when we run this, we'll get an idea of, as you can see, it's a little bit bigger than that. It's very close to the actual dimensions of my Photoshop window. Oh, I'm getting some light. Anyway, it's very close to the outputs up here, so it's probably more up here than where this is. Okay, so as you can see, where we're cropping it, we've got this. We don't have any menus near, which is what. And then it is sending through the upscale AD code, and we're outputting a latent. Whoops. We're outputting a latent reroute and an image reroute, which gives us some more flexibility if you want to use this in different ways. And on the right hand side, obviously, I've kind of shown this a little bit before, but we have the width and the height being brought in and the bay encode being brought in, just so that we can do the bay encode in here rather than put it somewhere else. Because in a modular setup, you want each module to be self-sustaining as much as it can be. You don't want it to have to plug in through another module or another node if you can avoid it. Alright, so as you can see, it's outputted to here, and when I clicked go, it sent it through the case sampler over here. Now, at this top right window in the kind of above everything else is it's a little preview of this kind of window here, this case sampler thing here. It's actually a preview of this bit here, but basically it'll work from where I am, and I can move this around and it won't mess up because I'm previewing. So that'll show you the output as I work on this, and as you can see, it is changing things, but not much because we've set this to 0.15. And hopefully you have now built yourself a little module here, or you are using the workflow that we have here. The rest of this tutorial is going to cover the usage of the live painting, because it's a little bit different than you might expect. You can't just do stick figures and hope to get away with it. It's not like that. This is more like certain versions of ControlNet, basically. But as you can see, I'll just show you some stuff with it. I'm going to switch on Photoshop again, and of course, top right hand side of the screen is the output. Now, you'll see that this big smooth area here is still big and smooth in the preview over there, And the red stuff's been changed a little bit. It's kind of, but not much. And the reason for that is Stable Diffusion, it doesn't like to work on big chunks of color. I've explained this in the noise tutorial I did a while ago, but the more kind of changes you have available to it, the more it can do to an image. And I'll show you an example of that. What we're going to do is we're going to add a new layer in Photoshop. Now, bearing in mind, of course, using GIMP, same deal, same stuff. Any program will have similar stuff, similar ways of working with. Hopefully you know how to use that program. So this is not a Photoshop tutorial, but I'm going to show you some stuff anyway. So I'm going to render, hang on, before I do, I'm going to change the fore and background colors. And I'm going to create a clouds on a new layer, black and white clouds. So this would be a Perlin noise. Now you could do this in ComfyUI with a Perlin noise node if you wanted to. Really up to you how you implement this kind of setup. And this is going to, if I generate, it's going to generate stuff. It's going to change it a little bit, not a huge amount, and you'll see it kind of change. It's going to add teeth probably, as you can see in the middle there. It's adding some kind of pointy teeth. You know, they're not fantastic, and that's because it's just got black and white here. It doesn't have a lot to work with, but we can add some more. So if we go and we'll add noise, I'm adding some RGB noise here, and really up to you how much you want to add or that kind of stuff. I'm just going to add the amount that I think works. And if we run it again, we'll cue the prompt again, and you'll have a look on the top right hand side as it works away at the image. There's going to be much more changes. As you can see, it's attempted to make a face, change some of the other things. There's teeth and stuff all over the place. I'll bring it in so you can actually have a look on the other window. So if we look really closely, you can see that it's done some work here. It is actually using the kind of brushwork oil painting method that I was explaining before, but it's adding teeth and stuff. And that's the power of noise right there as an example. And we're going to be using that to kind of push our art a little bit beyond, because if we just draw very simply, we're going to have a bad image. If we draw simply and then have noise over the top, it gives it a lot more to work with. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change this noise that's on top a little bit, and we're going to change the opacity to about 34, which should show us more of the original background. And I'm going to remove this because we don't need that. And we're going to start drawing just straight up on this kind of texture thing here. And on the workflow, on the ComfyUI workflow, just under Q prompt, there's a little thing, a little tick box for extra option. You click that and go to Auto Q, which is just below it. It should, next time you click Q, it'll just keep going. When it hits the end and it finishes the last render, it'll queue another one up, which will allow us to just work in here in the digital tablet or wherever, and it will live update as we work. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of do a little bit of artwork, not an amazing thing. And in the process, I'll talk about some of the things you want to do or pay attention to when you're working in this method, because it's not an exact science. You're more going at what you roughly want rather than specifically drawing a thing and saying I want these exact features, because that's not what SD is about. It's always going to change what you do. All right, let's go then. Let's begin work. All right, so I like to start with big chunks of color when I'm working on something like this, and because we're making a monster, I'm going to try and make a dragon, I guess. And let's do big brush, and we'll just paint a big chunk of color over here. And I'm going to the neck, and you know, we have a rough dragon shape going on now. Now if I generate this, it's not going to make a fantastic image, and I'm going to just queue up, which will then it'll start iterating. If you watch the top right hand side of the screen, it'll be changing as I work at this point. Now you could, if you were going to be doing this, you can do all kinds of stuff with layers. You can bring in images from outside. You can import things with image place or import or whatever, and it will they'll all work. It'll all run in there. But there's a couple of things you need to be aware of, and that is that it's not going to be able to change a huge amount. So if I make this like a cartoon, it's not going to be very good images. So if I have a big black outline around these things, it's and that and stuff, it's not going to be a massively amazing image. It's going to do stuff like what it's doing now, where it's got black in weird places, and it's going to generate another one, and the whole outside edge is going to be black and not going to look great. And that's because not really, you kind of just want to give it a clue to work with rather than specifics. And big black lines are specific as hell, and it doesn't know really what to do with those. So instead I'm going to use like gradients of the color, so dark colors that are close to the original color that I'm drawing them on, to kind of define edges and features and stuff within this kind of red section. Now you'll see that the color picker is up top and being rendered as a thing. I wouldn't worry too much about that because this is just going to keep cycling new stuff. Alright, so I'm now going to kind of edge in some details as I go. I'm doing this on a separate layer. I could do it all on the same layer if I wanted to, or whatever your method is for doing Photoshop images, or whatever program you're using. I'm going to just do very basic kind of shading stuff, and this is probably too dark to get proper definition out of it, but yeah, so bit dark there, and I'm going to do a lower jaw coming out of this as well. Actually, let's open it a bit more, give it some more teeth. And as you can see, it is actually generating pretty cool images at this point, and without me doing a huge amount of work to this. Now, if you want to use this process to actually learn to draw, you can. If you look back up at the image and you go, okay, I like that feature, and then copy it onto your image, and you just keep doing it, you will gradually get better at drawing as you kind of see the kind of features you like crop up in the randomness of the Stable Diffusion, kind of enabling you to add more kind of flavor to your artwork. And if you see what I'm doing, I'm adding color without a huge amount of border work. There is a little bit of kind of darker border going on, but if I add too much of that, what it's going to do is it's just going to kind of put black edges and things around stuff, which is not going to look very good. That a big couple of jaws there. Why not? Hopefully it can fix my terrible drawing. And let's add some bone to the end of these kind of pointy bits. And we'll add another spine there and there. And some more of the eyebrow, I guess. And let's add a big horn to its head up the front. Now you should see it's doing a whole bunch of stuff while I'm doing this, making my terrible artwork actually look decent. And the more detail you add to this, the more detail it's going to add. It's not going to copy you exactly. It's going to change stuff, and it's going to add its own little kind of quirks to things as you go as well. And obviously, I don't want to spend too long working on this thing. Let's go here, and we'll add a little bit of a thing here. And it needs an eyeball of some kind, so I'll go blue. You can have blue with a bit of white in the middle. Yeah. And there we go. Now, if we have a look back on the other window, I'll show you the kind of things it's actually generating it in more detail. As you can see, it is actually fully changing what I'm doing. It's making pretty decent images. If I was to kind of go back and forth between this, I could copy the image out of ComfyUI and put this into Photoshop and then refine it even more and work on it in different ways. Really, the sky's the limit for this. This can really help if you're doing things like concept art and you want to make really good images, or you just want to refine your images a little bit. If you just lower the denoise value on this, it will change the image less. So if you're an actual really good artist and you just want to make it quicker, make what you do quicker, you can just touch this up by a little bit and it will just refine the work you're doing a little bit. So yeah, and once you're done with this, you'd be passing this through into the next part of your workflow, like into the second is what you'd be doing. Hopefully this has shown you the some of the advantages of using a live kind of capture method to upgrade and work with your art. I find it really useful. I think it's a really cool kind of advance, but I think will eventually become the way that a lot of artists work, at least when they're producing kind of concept stuff. Not so much finished art, but actual concept, kind of the beginning start of their actual artwork process is probably where SD is going to be coming. And hopefully this helps you kind of learn how you can use AI to make your own artwork using your own skills rather than just relying entirely on the actual the text to image process and the SD process itself. Anyway, more tutorials coming soon. I've got some stuff to do with prompting to come next. But yeah, you can, once you get further along, you'll probably want to start reducing the amount of noise you have on top as you paint more detail in as well. So yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you need to find the nodes in question that work in this, you need ComfyUI Manager, which will put itself over here and it will find all the custom. Workflow will be included with this. You don't have to provide your own reference artwork to make it function though. So anyway, thank you for watching.